Welcome to It's Real with Jordan and Demi. In New York, I'm Jordan Edwards alongside Demi Ramos. What's going on, Demi?
Oh. Woo, hump day, and we have Thao.
Yes, we have Thao Nguyen on the show. I've been a big fan since the beginning of her career. She's released different types of music with different bands and different collaborators over the years. And she's got a really cool project we're going to talk about here. Let's bring her out. Thao Nguyen, everybody. Thao, what's going on?
How you doing? Good to see y'all.
Good, good, good. So we're having you on because you have been documenting the creation process of your newest album on Substack with this little blog journal type thing. Tell us about that process. First of all, we do have the address for it. Hope you can put that up. TaoForTheRecord.community. You can go on there and see the process of Thao creating her latest album. So tell us about that process, why you decided to do it.
Sure. Well, it was, it was in response to, of course, the more urgent dilemma for touring musicians, which is that we can't tour for a long time. At the time I started For the Record, it didn't look like I would be able to tour until March of 2022. And I wanted a way to be in touch with fans and supporters and to stay present and connected in a way that also served my future goals, which is to make another record. And I released one in May of 2020 called Temple, and it was pretty rough not to be able to tour it. So the next best thing is to just head back to the drawing board and start making that next record. And I wanted to be able to share that with people who are interested.
Excellent, excellent. Now, when it came to actually putting this record together, how did the documentation process affect your writing process? Because if you're taking time out to make these little videos and little journals and things, did it feel distracting, or did it help you actually kind of discipline yourself to create the record?
Well, I'm still very much in process, and I historically have had quite a discipline problem. So it's actually really nice to have this external accountability where I'm sure to be doing something in service of the record when otherwise I would be watching Chopped, for example.
I would be watching Chopped. I'm probably watching Chopped right now on the side.
Me too.
Do you prefer Chopped or Beat Bobby Flay?
Chopped.
Yeah.
Beat Bobby Flay I appreciate when I've seen all of the Chopped and I'm waiting for the next new episode.
So it's kind of a, like a buffer show.
It's a filler. I wouldn't say that to them, personally, but or in person. I don't know if I get a chance to meet Bobby Flay, but it's not as satisfying.
Are you much of a cook yourself?
I aspire to be, yes. Food, I really love food, and I grew up with a family who were amazing cooks and chefs, and so that's my other primary pastime.
We know your music. We know, your music speaks so much for itself. What is something about you that maybe your fans may not know?
That I grew up a pretty big sports fan, just watching it, not playing it. And some may know this. I can beatbox and hum at the same time, but a lot of people can.
Yeah. And you've beatboxed before in your music.
Just once. It was a novelty. It was like I didn't mean to, and they recorded it, and then it became part of that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how you said part of that song like it's Voldemort or something.
Right. Well, I just don't, I don't want to be reduced to it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's
Absolutely.
more. There's more. There's so
absolutely
many dimensions.
When I was looking at the For the Record journal, one of your trademarks is this vast collection of stringed guitar type instruments from all over the world, lap steels and instruments from Asia and from Central Europe and all over the place. I don't know if you have a balalaika in there, but I'm sure you played the balalaika at some point. How do you acquire gear? Do people give it to you? Do you go on eBay? Do you collect it on your travels? How do you accumulate your gear?
It's a combination. I'd say primarily I find them on tour, and it's one of the great rewarding sides of traveling, of getting to travel so much, is you can pick up instruments and things you'd otherwise never run into. The problem is getting it back home safely.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Now I know that, you came out with Temple. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and you're, working on this album now. And you've been one of these 3 to 4 years between albums kind of people. So what's up with this like, is it just, you have a lot of time in your hands right now, so might as well make another album?
It's, well, I can't tour. So, typically that 3 or 4 years, it takes that amount of time because promoting and supporting the album upon release takes almost 2 years if you're lucky, and then you need, I need another year and a half to make another record, and it's tougher for me to write on tour because tour is such, though I miss it and appreciate it, more than ever, it's a deeply exhausting, primal way to live.
Well, I've seen you a couple times. Saw you at the Black Cat in DC about 10 years ago, in the Kill Rock Stars days. And you're a Northern Virginia person, right?
I am.
Did you grow up in like the Falls Church area ish?
I grew up in Falls Church. Yeah.
Like city or area? Raised. I'm a DC, like.
Awesome. Seven Corners, right around there. Yeah. Okay.
That's a whole different world now than it was when you were a kid.
I can't imagine. I haven't been back in a while, but it seems like there's a ton of stuff happening, and there's way more Whole Foods.
There are way more Whole Foods.
Yeah. But I grew up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I heard somewhere that you don't drink before shows. You're not like you're not into all, despite being, in music. Is that something? When did that happen for you?
Have you always been a clean living person, I guess is what.
Yeah. No. I've been, that's just, those are just hard learned, roughly acquired lessons that if you tour for long enough, it's pretty clear when you got to tone it down, and hopefully you can. And it was years ago where I realized that, I can't remember who it was. I think that there's this informal network of mentorship that happens with people who are more experienced on the road. And, if you go open for a band, you might pick up life tips that really help you keep your career going and healthy. And, I think it was the Avett brothers who Seth Avett had told me that he didn't drink before, and actually very little on tour, to preserve his voice and also to just put on a better show. And
I feel like sober performance in general is better than drunk performance.
I think so. And at a certain point, you really respect the audience in the ways that you should have from the beginning, which is people are paying hard-earned money to come to your show, and you have to present the best show that you can, and you can't do that if you're a little bit drunk or a lot.
Yeah. Now, going back a little bit to your childhood growing up in Northern Virginia, that's a very international area. I mean, it's the suburbs of DC, so people will know that there's obviously going to be people from all over the world there, but it also is a interesting cross-cultural exchange. Even within your elementary school, I'm sure you had people from all over the world, whether they're first or second generation in your elementary, high school, things like that. So what kind of did that whole international experience, how did that affect your music? Because you do have sounds from all over the world in your albums.
You know, that's really interesting. I hadn't considered that before. I've always
That's such a
attributed-
music journalist, you jump to conclusion thing. You grew up in an international area, so that's why you play crazy instruments from all over the world, you know?
Right. That's I didn't encounter a lot of that. You know, I grew up in primarily, well, I'll say this. I think the main influences that I have in my music are attributed to what I grew up listening to and what my older brother was listening to and what I could get on the radio. So there's my brother listened to a lot of hip hop, and I listened to WPGC and 93.9 Kiss a lot, but I also listened to the oldies, you know, 100 big oldies 100, and you know, all of the pop music that was happening. So I didn't get more into a globally informed palette until I went to college, and I took a lot of music ethnology courses at William and Mary, and that's when I started. I was more exposed to sounds from all over the world.
Do you remember that first song that you wrote?
That I wrote?
You like the first song ever that you wrote?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you remember that, Thao?
I do. I remember.
Is it still decent?
Oh yeah, I mean, it stands up so well. Truly the first one was a book report for Charlotte's Web, and it was a rap song, and I recorded it on a little cassette player at home, and then when it was time to present it, I just pressed play. I brought it into class because I was too shy to perform it at that time, being
did you at least like lip sync it, perform it along with the recording? Yeah.
No, I was like, I just pressed play and I was like, oh god, this is terrifying.
It's funny we don't trust little kids to memorize things. I remember there was this second grade teacher that everyone wanted. Her name was Miss Kessler, and Miss Kessler let her classes perform Wizard of Oz and like plays for kids, but they would always like had a tape and they would just like mouth to the tape because no one trusted them.
Right.
I was like, that's such a strange, like I hadn't thought about Miss Kessler's plays since, you know, 2003 or something. I don't know, but
right.
Yeah.
But now probably with TikTok, little kids are way more advanced. And
well, when sea shanties become a trend, you know, anything's up for, you know, anything can happen. One, on your Substack, on the For the Record blog that you're doing, one of your entries is a resource page for Stop Asian Hate and what's going on right now in the United States and all over the world, frankly. What I'm curious to know about, you know, you come from this Vietnamese family. I guess for lack of better, I'm just a white dude. I'm sorry for how rough this question is, but how Vietnamese was your upbringing versus how Americanized did your parents want you to be?
It was deeply Vietnamese, but you know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Virginia, so there's you know, when people talk about bifurcated existence and having to exist entirely in two different worlds and trying to reconcile them or not being able to, that's what my experience was. And the emphasis on assimilation, the racism overt and you know, more in the realm of microaggression was so deeply ingrained in everyday experience. And I grew up, you know, my mom had a laundromat when I was a kid, and I grew up working there and in Fairfax, Virginia. And I just, you know, if you grow up in a refugee family and an immigrant family, probably now and definitely then, you just, you bear witness to a lot of things and you absorb a lot of indignities and deeply infuriating, deeply dehumanizing things. And, you know, and you push on. And at a certain point, you decide you are no longer willing to just take it or let your family members or your community just take it.
Wow. What does a day in the life of Thao look like? Aside from music, you wake up, what's the first thing you do?
It's funny because you actually do have an entry on your Substack about your daily schedule.
Oh yeah, because it's so hard to have one. I think, I spent my entire adulthood touring, and that's an imposed structure, which I really appreciated. And when over the years that when I've been home from tour, you're home for a few days, a few weeks, maybe a couple months at most. And it's like not enough time to establish another routine, but it's also really disorienting because you're not sure what you're supposed to be or what your worth is, or it gets deeply existential. But so I'm always trying to figure out a routine, and then in the past year it's been very necessary. I wake up and I try to exercise and meditate, and then I write.
Do you have a fancy Peloton bike?
No, I have old running shoes and creaky knees. So I try to go on a run or do
You're
some
based
core
in
thing.
the Bay Area. Are you? I knew you were based in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think of the hills. Do you have lots of a hilly area?
I do. I know. That's why it's so rough on the knees. I think now I have to walk way more than I.
There's a reason they made stair steppers, and
that's right. Yeah,
bikes.
Those remind me of tour. I try to stay off them until I'm on tour, and then you're in the hotel gym.
Remind you of like hotel gyms, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a sadness to them, so I try to avoid
sadness to hotel gyms. Yeah. Before we move on, I didn't quite get fully into the whole issue with Asian hate crimes and things. You talked about the kind of microaggression racism, and when it comes to Asian cultures, we know what those are without saying them. And that's always been a part of your identity, is this American and also Vietnamese culture. And you actually made a documentary 5 or 6 years ago called Nobody Dies, where you actually went back to Vietnam. Can you tell us about that whole experience and kind of give a primer about the documentary for people who aren't familiar with it?
Sure. And first, I'll say that, what's been happening lately, in addition to the long-standing, more subtle or more of this taunting or those kind of microaggressions that I'd referenced. Now it's, it is overt and
it's more
brutal, and it's violent, and it's, there's this very specific intersection of racism and misogyny that Asian women experience, and we are seeing that bear out in the most terrifying ways. I will say the documentary. So I'd never been to Vietnam, and this was in 2015. I was invited with my band to perform in Vietnam for the commemoration of the normalization of relations between U.S. and Vietnam. And I wanted to bring my mom back, and she hadn't been back since 1973. So it was about 43 years since she'd been back, and it was a deeply intense, very emotional trip. And
is this still available for streaming somewhere, or?
It is, yes. It I taped a kind of an introduction to address it. It's available on my link tree at the moment. It had aired originally on PBS, but for now it's available on my different social media handles, and the link tree is Thao Thao Thao.
Thao Thao Thao. In 2019, you were the long-term guest host of the Song Exploder podcast. and which is something I really want to talk about as someone who hosts and talks to people about their signature songs.
Mhm.
What did you get out of, first of all, let's back, how did you get involved with that, and why did you decide to take on that role?
Sure. Well, I had originally been a guest, I believe in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah, you did Astonished Man,
That's right.
which is a
Yeah.
great song, by the way. If you haven't heard the
Thank you.
song, look up Astonished Man.
Thank you. And Rishi Hirway, who's the creator of Song Exploder, and a great guy, and has become a good friend of mine. He got in touch. He was planning to take a year off of Song Exploder to work on his own music and pursue different projects. And he asked if I would be interested in guest hosting for the year. And at that point, I was off tour because I was making my record. I was starting to write Temple, so it was an amazing opportunity and great timing to take that on. It is so I'm so glad that I got to do it.
Well, it sounds great. What did you enjoy about? Because I just love talking to artists about their signature songs and breaking it down. Was it kind of like a fangirl, geeky kind of thing aspect to it too?
There was that, and there was just an overall fascination for people's work routines and processes. And that was, I love hearing about how people spend their day and how they figure out what they're going to do. And especially with creative work like this, when you have to motivate yourself every day, and there are no real consequences when you don't, until there's nothing.
Speaking of process, what is your musical process? It's like sometimes there's a lot of different sounds. It feels like you're coming from a lot of different places with your music. I can't pinpoint an exact genre. What is your specific process when writing?
It depends on the song. I think I've in years past would just start writing a song on an acoustic instrument, but over the past few records, I've definitely built more beats and gotten into more electronic music and building beds, within Logic or Pro Tools, and then writing from there. It's a combination. It depends on the nature of the song and what I think it is calling for, and a lot of that has to do with lyrical content. So I'll keep a running journal or documentation of lyrics or ideas for songs. And then,
so what you're doing for Substack isn't too dissimilar from what you do anyway in terms of organizing. I joked about your extensive collection of instruments and if you played the balalaika before and all this kind of stuff, but is there an instrument or instruments that you really like the sound of that you haven't learned how to play or that you would like to incorporate at some point?
I do. I have, it's either an incredible or terrible habit of buying things before I know what I'll need them, before having an exact idea of what I'll use them for, or even how to use them. But I have lately bought more synthesizers, and I just got the Arturia Micro Freak, and that requires a digging in. That requires like a time spent just exploring sounds that I haven't had time for yet.
I know that you're still in the process of making this new album. We got sketches, we got little, tastes of lyrics, of riffs on guitars and things like that. But how is it coming together in terms of the overall sound? You mentioned synthesizers. Are we going to hear like synth pop songs or?
I don't know if I would say synth pop, but you'll definitely hear synthesizers on them. I love building beats with a combination of muted stringed instruments and synthesizers and drum machines. So there'll be more of that. But it's also been nice, within this past year to get back on acoustic guitar and figure out different tunings. I think there will be more a combination of how I started writing music and what I'm into now. And it's a very ongoing process, and I've been quite forthright with people that I'm not sure where it will all lead. Eventually it will culminate in an album, but I take a while. You know, they're meandering paths that eventually lead us to the songs.
Have you ever done any or considered doing film or TV scoring, things like that, more classically arranged music? Because you do have that background, you do have that skill set.
I would love to get into more scoring. I have been in the past few months starting to enter in that arena more officially. So that's exciting.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, that is exciting, especially knowing what kinds of sounds that you produce and how good they would match up with I'm saying how good they would match up with, like, and I don't even know what that would sound like, but I think it's a good application of your sounds. I'm excited to hear that. You have this huge studio, and you're known for your band, the Get Down Stay Down. And I've noticed when I was looking up, articles, blog posts, things like that over the past couple of years, you're always quick to point out that I am part of the Get Down Stay Down, that my band is called the Get Down Stay Down. How much of your process now is, how much do you actually interact with your bandmates, any of your bandmates, while you're making music now, especially because you can't tour?
You know, it's been a very solitary process, and it always is that when I'm beginning to write music and write songs. I spend a long time with them before I open them up to any kind of collaboration, and so it's unknown. It's unknown. What I think I'm really excited to see what I can do, and there's plenty of time to open it up further down the road.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to whatever comes of this project. You have no release date for it yet, and it just kind of how it ends when it ends.
It ends when it ends, or when someone tells me it should be ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
I like external pressure, you know.
Yeah. Someone to kind of put the thumb down, and
that's right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That helps.
Or do a little. All right, let's go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Thao, for talking to us. Really appreciate it. Good luck on the new album. And of course, you can go to taofortherecord.community to see Thao create this record, and the sounds and the thoughts and her schedule and different resources and everything you could want to know about Thao Nguyen. So, all right. We'll talk to you later. All right. That was Thao Nguyen. And that was really fun. It's really cool. I've been a fan for a long time. It's great to talk to Thao about her process, and especially someone who grew up in Northern Virginia, and I'm kind of a DC guy. So that was really
cool. Saw her live 10 years ago.
I did see her live 10 years ago. And I believe it was just a trio. She was on guitar, and her Get Down, Stay Down, it was just bass and drums, and it was just the 3-piece, and it was really good. And it had the kind of feeling like a back porch kind of, summer concert was the feel. And it's cool that she can go from that spare 3-piece style to doing, more orchestral, full-blown arrangements with multiple instruments and multi-tracking, things like that. So yeah. All right. What do we got coming up next week, Demi?
All right, guys, let me tell you something. We have Earth Eater. I'm a big fan. She's from LA, but she came to New York City, I think, a few years ago, and has kind of been tearing shit up. Yeah, we're gonna ask her some more personal questions because she's kind of a mystery. But we're also gonna talk about the music, how Rosalia posted her song on Instagram and it just fucking blew up. We're gonna talk about that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter cosigns are like a whole different show. We could do a whole show on people posting things from different artists. All right, Demi, I'm out, you're out. And so as always, you can go to popdust.com for all our shows, past and present. We're up to 70 shows now, which is a lot of shows. We had some great artists on, and so you can check out our archive. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram at Jordan Edwards Studio, and Demi at Demi_Ramos. We will see you next week with Earth Eater. Until then, see you later.